This is a relaxing Minecraft ASMR with calming storytelling of narratives. The Locked Room. Marissa had worked the night shift at the roadside motel for just 3 weeks when the strange request came in. Room 104 called down. A man's voice, flat and expressionless, reported a broken door lock. She grabbed the toolkit from under the desk and made her way up the dim corridor. When she entered the room, the man was sitting on the bed, staring at the muted television. He didn't speak, just pointed to the door behind her. As she crouched to inspect the lock, the door clicked shut. The sound froze her. She turned slowly to find him standing now, just a few feet away. His expression hadn't changed, but something in his eyes had. He was watching her too closely. It's not too bad, she said, rising cautiously. Might just need a screw tightened. He didn't respond. The silence stretched. Her phone had no signal. The door wouldn't open. She glanced at the window, sealed. Her heart pounded in her ears. She smiled, falsely casual, edging toward the bed where her toolkit lay. Let me just get the right bit. When she turned back so he was closer, she lunged, snatched the screwdriver, and jammed it into the latch. The man grabbed at her wrist, but she twisted free, flung the door open, and ran, barefoot, down the hallway, past the vending machines, and into the arms of the night clerk who had heard her screaming. When police arrived, the room was empty. He had vanished, lost on the ridge. Dylan loved hiking. The crisp air, the solitude, the illusion of control. So when his fellow counselors headed back to camp with the kids, he decided to summit Storm King Ridge alone. He'd done it before. The path narrowed near the peak, and fog began to roll in. His water bottle was nearly empty. Still, he pressed on. The view from the top would be worth it. Half an hour later, the trail had vanished beneath his feet. Rocks crumbled beneath him as he skidded down a steep slope. Pain shot through his knee. Disoriented, he scanned the tree line. Nothing looked familiar. He had no cell signal. His calls for help echoed into the silence. As dusk fell, the forest turned menacing. Every rustle felt like a threat. He built a crude shelter from pine boughs and tried to sleep, but his mind replayed the fall again and again. By morning, he was feverish. His knee was swollen. He fashioned a walking stick from a snapped branch and hobbled downhill, marking trees with his pocket knife. On the third day, he heard voices. Camp staff had sent out a search party. When they found him, he could barely stand. The mountain had nearly claimed him, but he would climb again someday, just not alone. The Redwood Trap. Evan had always wanted to explore the untouched parts of Redwood National Park. So when he stumbled on an unmarked trail while hiking alone, he couldn't resist. He pushed through dense underbrush, chasing that primal thrill of discovery. But an hour in, he realized he was lost. No trail markers, no cell reception, only trees so tall they blotted out the sun. He spent the first night under a fallen log, wrapped in his jacket. Hunger came quickly. He rationed trail mix and filtered creek water through his shirt. On day 3, he tried to climb a hill to gain perspective. Halfway up, a rainstorm rolled in. Mud slid beneath his boots. He fell hard. Blood stained his sleeve. Each night the forest closed around him, alive with rustling things. By day 6, he had stopped speaking aloud. He fashioned a spear from a branch and tried to catch fish. Once he saw a boar and froze, heart hammering. He marked his path with stones and bark carvings, kept walking. On the 10th day, he reached a logging road. A ranger truck appeared as if from nowhere. Evan collapsed in relief. He emerged thinner, sunburnt, and changed. Nature had stripped away every illusion of safety, but given him something harder: respect, the man in the reflection. Emily was the last to leave the office that night. The building was old, the kind with creaky floors and heavy mirrors at each corridor turn. She hated closing alone, but it was her turn. As she passed the mirror near the elevator, something made her stop. Her reflection wasn't right. She stood still. So did the image, but the expression was wrong. The reflection looked strained, almost afraid. She lifted a hand. The reflection lagged. Her breath caught. She looked behind her's empty hallway. When she looked back, the reflection was gone. Only empty mirror. She didn't take the elevator. She ran down 6 flights of stairs. 2 days later, she saw the mirror had been removed. Management claimed it had cracked on its own, but she never saw the janitor who worked that floor again. She never stayed late again either. House on the lake. Ben and his girlfriend rented a secluded lake house for a weekend away from city noise. The place was rustic, with a dock, a rowboat, and a fireplace. The air smelled of pine and possibility. That first night, they heard something move outside. Ben assumed it was a raccoon. The second night, they heard it again, closer. Footsteps on the deck. Ben peered out with a flashlight. Nothing. On the third night, his girlfriend shook him awake. Someone's in the house. Ben grabbed a fire poker and crept into the living room. The sliding door to the deck was open. Cold air rushed in. He stepped outside. Nothing moved, but when he turned back, he saw a shape in the hallway mirror, tall, unmoving. When he whispered, so the shape was gone. So was his girlfriend. He ran room to room, screaming her name. He found her in the bathroom. The door was locked from the inside. She didn't remember leaving the bedroom. She didn't know how she got there. They left before sunrise. They never spoke of it again. But sometimes, Ben still sees footprints in morning frost. Too large to be hers, always leading back to the lake. The attic light. Julia moved into the old farmhouse alone, thrilled by the quiet and the space. The house had charm, worn floors, antique fixtures, a creaky wooden staircase. But there was one thing she couldn't explain: the light in the attic. Every night around 2 a.m., a soft glow appeared through the ceiling boards. She never turned it on. No one else was there. One night, curiosity overcame fear. She climbed the attic steps with a flashlight in hand. The bulb overhead was dead, and no lamps were plugged in, yet the glow remained, emanating from an old trunk in the corner. She opened it slowly. Inside were dozens of journals, entries from the 1920s through 1950s, written by someone named Eleanor. The entries were obsessed with keeping the light going. As Julia read, her flashlight dimmed. When she looked up, the attic was bathed in a warm yellow glow. She shut the trunk, and the light vanished. The next day, she nailed the attic door shut. She never opened it again. But sometimes, when the wind is just right, she can see a faint glow bleeding from under the boards. Beneath the forgotten tunnel, construction crews discovered it while digging beneath the old public library, a narrow, bricked-off tunnel no one had records of. City officials chalked it up to outdated maps. But Marcus, a junior archivist, was obsessed. He convinced a supervisor to let him explore. The tunnel began with carved stone walls and a descending slope. After 30 steps, the air turned sour, and the flashlight beam dimmed as if swallowed by the dark. Etched into the walls were names, thousands, layered and scratched violently. Then he heard it. breathing ragged and slow. He called out, no response, just an echo and another exhale. When he turned back, the entrance was gone, just more names. He sprinted forward, scraping shoulders, gasping. After 10 panicked minutes, the opening reappeared like it had never moved. Marcus never went back, but he sometimes checks the names in the stone. One day, he found his own scratched faintly among them. The sleep experiment. Natalie joined a university sleep study for extra cash. Just 5 nights, quiet room, no phones, easy money. The first night was fine. The second, she woke gasping from a nightmare, though she didn't remember the dream. By night 3, her dreams became vivid. A man in a black coat watching her from the corner of the room. She told the researchers, who assured her it was normal, sleep cycles adjusting, nothing more. But by night 4, she couldn't move when she woke. The man now hovered inches from her face. On the 5th morning, she didn't wake up in the facility bed, but in her own room, unsure how she got home. Her phone had dozens of missed calls. The facility had burned down overnight. All participants were presumed dead. She was never on the registry. The wrong reflection. Tyler liked antique stores. One afternoon, he bought a hand mirror for $2, ornate frame, slightly tarnished glass. That night, brushing his teeth, he noticed something strange. His reflection blinked a half-second too late. He tested it, raised his hand. The reflection followed, but always slightly delayed. Then it smiled. He hadn't. He slammed the mirror into the sink, shattering it. The next morning, his bathroom mirror showed the same smile. The delay remained. It wasn't the hand mirror. He covered every reflective surface in his apartment. Still, in dreams, he saw the face, smiling, closer, waiting. The old man on the bench. Every morning at 6:30, Lila walked past the park bench near the duck pond, and every morning an old man sat there reading the same book, a worn red leather volume with no visible title. One morning, she decided to stop and ask what he was reading. He looked up, blinked slowly, and handed her the book. Inside were photographs, hundreds of them, all of her, at work, at home, asleep in bed. When she looked up, the bench was empty. The man and the book were gone. She never took that path again. The caller from the past. Tom's landline rang at exactly 3 a.m. He answered groggily. The voice on the other end was familiar. "Tom, it's me. You have to stop it, please." Then the line went dead. It was his own voice. The next day, Tom rummaged through old boxes in his attic and found a box of cassette tapes labeled, "Do Not Play." One of the tapes described the exact call from the previous night, word for word. More tapes contained messages about future events, accidents, betrayals, tragedies. Everything they warned about came true. Tom tried to destroy them. He burned them, buried them. Still, the phone rang every night at 3 a.m. He no longer answers. The shifting staircase. At the university's east wing, there was a staircase no one used. People said it didn't lead anywhere. Liam decided to disprove the rumor. He live-streamed himself climbing the stairs. The steps stretched endlessly. The decor repeated every dozen steps, but Liam never reached a landing. Viewers in the chat grew concerned. Then silence. The feed cut off. Security found his phone at the bottom, battery drained. The last image, Liam looking upward, eyes wide. He never came back down. The door that wasn't there. Ava had lived in her apartment for over a year. She knew every creak, every shadow. So when she saw a new door at the end of the hallway one morning, she froze. It was white with a silver knob. She touched it. Cold. Her landlord insisted there's no door there. That night, it opened. Inside, a stone staircase descending into blackness. She took 5 steps before the door slammed behind her. She turned back. Only brick. No one heard her scream. Her apartment remained silent. Only the hallway light flickered, casting a glow on a blank wall. The roommate Jess found a great deal on a 2-bedroom apartment. Her roommate was quiet. She never saw them, but dishes were sometimes done. Then Jess noticed her shampoo being used. She left a note. The next morning, a reply. "Please don't come in. I don't like being seen." She respected the boundary until the crying started. One night, she entered the room. It was empty. Cobwebs, dust. The bed hadn't been touched in years, but the note was gone and the crying continued. This time, through the walls, static, Mark reviewed late-night security footage. One feed glitched at 3:07 a.m. A woman stepped into the frame. She stood, staring at the camera. 12 minutes passed. She never blinked. Then her mouth opened. No sound, just static. When he checked the timestamp, it was dated for the next day. At 3:07 a.m., the next night, the woman returned. This time, she smiled, and Mark's monitor shut off by itself. The collector. Theo loved garage sales. He collected strange objects, music boxes, postcards, figurines. One Saturday, he found a pristine dollhouse with intricate rooms, furniture, even people. At home, he noticed the details were eerily familiar. Each miniature room resembled apartments in his building. The figures wore similar clothes to his neighbors. Then the accidents began. He knocked over the dining room. That night, his upstairs neighbors had a gas leak. He rearranged the figurines, and someone down the hall tripped in the elevator. One night, he saw a new figure. It looked like him. He locked the dollhouse away. But sometimes, he hears tiny footsteps behind the glass door. The never-sent letter. Olivia inherited her grandmother's desk. Hidden in the back of a drawer was an envelope, sealed, yellowed by time. It was addressed to her with a postmark from 20 years ago. Inside was a letter warning her not to trust someone named Callum. She didn't know anyone by that name. Months later, she met a man, charming, gentle. His name was Callum. As their relationship deepened, odd things began to happen. Her keys disappeared. She found bruises she couldn't explain. Dreams turned violent. One night, she showed him the letter. His smile faded. He grabbed it, tore it in half, and left. She hasn't seen him since. Last week, a new letter appeared in her mailbox. No postmark, no stamp, only her name, and another warning, the last customer. Ryan worked the night shift at a 24-hour diner. It was quiet. Mostly regulars or drunk college kids. It's at 3:40 a.m. A man walked in wearing a gray suit, outdated and clean. He sat in the corner booth and asked for coffee. Black Ryan turned for just a second. When he returned, the booth was empty, the cup untouched, but the coffee was ice cold. Confused, he checked the footage. The man wasn't there. The next night, same time, same suit, same booth. On the third night, Ryan found a silver coin under the napkin, dated 1874. Now, every night at 3:40, the man returns, but never stays. The breathing walls. Carla moved into a downtown apartment. It was cheap, spacious, and quiet. Too quiet. At night, she noticed something strange. The walls pulsed, subtle at first, then stronger. She pressed her hand against the drywall. It was warm, almost alive. At night, it felt like the walls were breathing, slow and deep. She cut into one with a knife and found what looked like tissue, veins. It bled. She screamed and called the police, but when they arrived, it was just insulation. They called it a panic attack. Carla moved out, but sometimes she still wakes with her hand pressed to the wall, and it's always warm. The disappearing stoplight. Julian drove the same route every morning, always stopped at the light on 5th and Marlowe. One morning it was gone. No light, no poles, no intersection, just trees. He turned back, but the road behind him was gone too, only endless forest. He drove forward. Eventually, after what felt like hours, the city reappeared. The next day, the light was back, but every few weeks, it disappears again. And each time, the forest stretches a little farther. The photographer Mason developed old film for a hobby. He liked the mystery of found rolls. One day, he bought a used camera at a flea market. Inside was a half-shot roll. The photos started normal. Trees, streets, an apartment interior. Then came a picture of Mason sleeping in his bed. Another showed him brushing his teeth. The final one, him standing over his own bed, holding the camera. He checked the camera's timestamp. All photos were dated a week before he bought it. He threw the camera in a dumpster. That night, a flash woke him. A new roll was on his dresser. The sub Mira joined a substitute teacher app to make ends meet. She accepted an early morning job at a school she'd never heard of. The building was massive, yet eerily empty. No staff, just kids already in their seats, silent. She tried to speak, and no one answered. The students never blinked. She taught for hours. The clock never moved. Finally, she walked out, only to find herself in the same classroom. The students watched her with dull eyes. She screamed, kicked the door, threw chairs. A bell rang. They stood up and left. She tried to follow. The hallway looped forever. The forest that watches. Nina hiked the same trail every weekend. It was her escape from the noise of city life. But last Saturday, something changed. The trees felt closer, the path narrower. Birds didn't sing. She turned to head back and realized the trail behind her had vanished. No footprints, no markers, just endless green. Then she noticed the carvings on the trees. Eyes, hundreds of them, gouged into the bark. One tree had her name. She ran. When she made it to her car, mud-covered and panicked, the clock on the dashboard read the same time she'd left that morning, as if no time had passed at all. The painting that changed. Leo bought the oil painting at a flea market. A serene landscape, hills, trees, a cottage. After hanging it in his hallway, he noticed changes. The sky darkened. The cottage's door opened. Then a figure appeared in the window. Each day it moved, closer to the foreground. By the end of the week, the figure was standing on the hill, facing out. He covered the painting with a sheet. That night, he dreamed of standing on the hill himself, unable to move, while the figure approached. In the morning, the sheet was gone, and the painting was empty. The wrong house key. Derek came home late from work and inserted his key into the front door. It turned, but when he stepped inside, it wasn't his home. Same layout, same furniture, but the family photos weren't his. The dog wasn't his, and a man who looked exactly like him stepped out of the kitchen, eyes wide. They stared at each other. Then the man screamed. Derek ran, dropped the key. When he returned with police, the house was gone. Just an empty lot. No foundation, No mailbox, just grass and wind. The book that wrote back. Marcy found the notebook in a used bookstore. Blank pages, worn cover. She used it for journaling until one night her entry responded, "I'm here too." She thought she was imagining it. But every night, no matter what she wrote, something replied in handwriting not her own. The voice grew bolder. It asked questions, knew her secrets, then it made demands. When she stopped writing, the pages flipped on their own. Words scrawled themselves angrily. She tried burning the book. It didn't burn. The longest night. Tom's power went out during a thunderstorm. He lit candles, wrapped himself in a blanket, and waited, but morning never came. The clock stayed frozen at 3:12 a.m. His phone wouldn't power on. The candles never melted. He opened the front door and found only blackness. Not night, just void, like the world ended at his porch. He slept, woke, still 3:12. The only thing that changed was the knock at the door. He didn't open it, but now it knocks every hour. The passenger Jared drove Uber on weekends. Most rides were uneventful until he picked up a woman in a white coat at 2:17 a.m. She didn't speak, just pointed. He drove her to an address that didn't exist, a dead-end alley behind a shuttered warehouse. When he turned to ask a question, the seat was empty. He checked the trip history. No ride recorded, no fare, no passenger name. The only trace was a smudge on the rear window, a handprint from the inside. The echo. Rachel moved into a new apartment with tall ceilings and perfect acoustics. She loved the echo until it started replying. She'd say hello and hear back hello. But then came variations. "Who are you? Don't leave me." One night she screamed, and the echo screamed back. She moved out. The next tenant knocked on her door weeks later. "Did the walls ever talk to you?" The empty crib. Claire set up the nursery for months. She folded clothes, painted walls, chose a name, then came the miscarriage. She left the room untouched, a shrine to what could have been. One night, the baby monitor lit up, static, then soft cooing. She entered the room. The mobile spun slowly. A shape shifted under the blanket. She pulled it back. Nothing there. Just the smell of baby powder. The book that wrote back. Marcy found the notebook in a used bookstore. Blank pages, worn cover. She used it for journaling until one night her entry responded, "I'm here too." She thought she was imagining it, but every night, no matter what she wrote, something replied in handwriting not her own. The voice grew bolder. It asked questions, knew her secrets, then it made demands. When she stopped writing, the pages flipped on their own. Words scrawled themselves angrily. She tried burning the book. It didn't burn. The longest night. Tom's power went out during a thunderstorm. He lit candles, wrapped himself in a blanket, and waited. But morning never came. The clock stayed frozen at 3:12 a.m. His phone wouldn't power on. The candles never melted. He opened the front door and found only blackness. Not night, just void, like the world ended at his porch. He slept, woke. Still 3:12. The only thing that changed was the knock at the door. He didn't open it, but now it knocks every hour. The passenger Jared drove Uber on weekends. Most rides were uneventful until he picked up a woman in a white coat at 2:17 a.m. She didn't speak, just pointed. He drove her to an address that didn't exist, a dead-end alley behind a shuttered warehouse. When he turned to ask a question, the seat was empty. He checked the trip history. No ride recorded, no fare, no passenger name. The only trace was a smudge on the rear window, a handprint from the inside. The Echo. Rachel moved into a new apartment with tall ceilings and perfect acoustics. She loved the Echo until it started replying. She'd say hello and hear back hello. But then came variations. Who are you? Don't leave me. One night she screamed and the Echo screamed back. She moved out. The next tenant knocked on her door weeks later. Did the walls ever talk to you? The empty crib. Claire set up the nursery for months. She folded clothes, painted walls, chose a name. Then came the miscarriage. She left the room untouched, a shrine to what could have been. One night, the baby monitor lit up, static, then soft cooing. She entered the room. The mobile spun slowly. A shape shifted under the blanket. She pulled it back, nothing there. Just the smell of baby powder. The bus that never stopped. Every evening, Leo took the same route home. One rainy Thursday, his usual bus pulled up. Older than usual, rusted edges. An old driver with a face he couldn't quite place. He boarded anyway. There were no other passengers. The lights flickered, the windows fogged, stop after stop passed, but no one got on, no one got off. When Leo tried to pull the cord, it snapped. He asked the driver when his stop was coming. The man only smiled. They drove into the tunnel. He's still on that bus. The family portrait. Liza moved into her grandmother's old house and found an oil painting in the attic. Her grandmother's family, including children she didn't recognize. She asked her aunt. There were no other kids. Each night, one more child in the portrait turned to face forward. By the fifth night, one was missing. She heard footsteps upstairs. The sixth night, she saw her own face beginning to appear in the corner. The mirror in the woods. Aiden and his friends discovered a standing mirror deep in the forest while hiking. Perfect condition, no signs of aging. They joked, posed, took pictures. That night, Aiden dreamed of the mirror. In the reflection, he was alone. Behind him, someone moved. When he checked the mirror app the next day, the photo they took was gone. In its place, a shot of the empty woods and someone watching. The dog that knew. Emily's dog refused to enter the guest room. Every time she tried to coax him in, he whined, growled, or backed away. One day, she left the door open. When she returned from work, her dog was inside, motionless, eyes wide, tail tucked. He never barked again. She moved out. The next tenant had no dog. They lasted 2 weeks. The room that wasn't there. Alex's apartment lease said 2 bedrooms, but he could only find 1. The second door was a wall. Maintenance found nothing wrong. One night, Alex woke to find the door open. Inside, a perfectly furnished room, complete with clothes, the photos, and a journal. He flipped to the last page. It read, "Don't trust the other Alex." The elevator ride. Sam entered the elevator in her office building alone. She pressed 14. The elevator stopped at 9. No one there. Then at 6, still no one. It descended to B3. There was no B3. The doors opened to pitch black. Something stepped inside. The elevator began to rise. Sam never left the building. The stranger on the baby monitor. Sarah bought a baby monitor with a camera feature. She had no kids, but used it for her pets. One night, the monitor pinged. The feed showed a child sitting on the floor, pale, still. She ran to the room, empty. The monitor kept pinging. Every night at 3:17 a.m., the same child returned. One night, it waved. The static broadcast Dan was flipping through old radio channels when one caught his ear. Static, then music from the 1930s, then voices. He realized they were describing events from his life, word for word. One voice laughed and said, He's listening now. The radio exploded with static. Dan never touched one again, but every now and then he hears that laugh in his dreams. The forest path, walking in the woods, June found a fork in the trail she didn't recognize. Curious, she followed it. The air grew thick. The trees seemed to lean in. She turned around. The path behind her was gone. She walked for hours, found a clearing with a single sign. You left when you shouldn't have. Her phone rang. It was her own voice whispering, "Don't come home." The copy Tyler's phone rang. It was himself. Same number, same voicemail greeting. He answered. "I'm you," the voice said, "but I made different choices." Tyler hung up. The next day, his reflection smiled before he did. Then it didn't stop smiling. It hasn't stopped since. The locked-in motel, Cassie stopped at a roadside motel, room 8. At 2:03 a.m., the door locked itself. Her phone powered off. Lights flickered. Voices echoed from the air vent, whispering names. She tried the window, screwed shut. Then the closet creaked open. Inside, a TV, playing footage of her sleeping. She hadn't turned it on. The fog. The fog rolled into town fast. By noon, you couldn't see your own hand. People disappeared. Calls didn't go through. When it lifted 3 days later, half the town was gone. No one spoke of it. Now, whenever fog returns, everyone stays inside, and no one asks questions. The static doll Anna found a porcelain doll at an estate sale. Its eyes followed her. Each time she left the room, it changed position. One night, her TV turned on to static. In the static, the doll's face, close, grinning. The car in the field. Driving home at dusk, Ben saw a car parked in an empty field, headlights on, driver's door open. He stopped to help. No one inside. Just a note on the dashboard. "Thanks for stopping." Then his own car door locked from the outside. The night game kids in town whispered of a game you could play at midnight. You write your name in a circle of salt and chant, "Find me," just once, then wait. No one knew what happened next, but people who played it were never quite the same or never seen again. The wrong reflection. James brushed his teeth, glanced in the mirror. His reflection didn't move. Then it smiled. James didn't. Now he avoids mirrors, but they never avoid him. The attic light. Every night, the attic light flicked on. No one lived up there. Mark installed cameras. The footage showed nothing until the 7th night. A pale hand pulled the chain, then waved. The bridge. Local legend said the covered bridge was cursed. Cross it at midnight, and you'd meet yourself. Drunk and defiant, Nick did. Halfway across, he saw someone standing at the other end. Same face, same clothes, but grinning too wide. Nick turned to run, too late. Now he's the one waiting, the man in the closet. Every night, Dylan heard footsteps in his room. Always at 1:09 a.m., he set a trap, flour on the floor, closet cracked open. Next morning, footprints, leading out, but none going in. 65. The voice in the drain shower running. Aaron heard someone whisper. From the drain. She bent down. The voice said, "Can I come up?" She turned off the water. The voice said, "That's not polite." And something moved. The clock tower. Ellie always found the old clock tower in her town charming, its bells marking every hour with mechanical pride. But one night, while walking home late, she heard it chime 13 times. Curious, she glanced at her phone, 13 a.m. She looked up and saw a figure standing in the window of the tower, staring down. It didn't move. The next day, she asked the town clerk about it. "The tower hasn't worked in 40 years, he said, "and there's no way up. Stairs collapsed decades ago. That night, her alarm clock flashed 3:13, and she heard the chimes again. The ticking suitcase. Mira found the suitcase abandoned on the subway platform, black as a scuffed, no tags. She alerted security, but no one came. The station was nearly empty. As she waited, she heard ticking, then it stopped. She leaned closer and a voice whispered, "I waited for you." She ran. The suitcase was gone the next morning, but her name had been etched into the metal where it had been, in perfect, neat lettering. The third floor. The hotel clerk warned Jack when he checked in. Third floor is closed for renovations. Don't go up. But Jack, curious after a few drinks, took the stairs. The third floor hallway was pristine, no construction, just dim lights and faded wallpaper. Halfway down the corridor, every door opened at once. He ran. The elevator wouldn't come. The stairs led back to the third floor again. When he finally burst into the lobby, panting, the clerk looked up and said, "You shouldn't be here. Jack checked out last night." The missing photo. While sorting through her grandmother's photo albums, Sarah found a picture she'd never seen. A picnic, family all smiling. In the corner stood a tall man in black, face blurred. Her grandmother's handwriting read, "Last day before we forgot." That night, Sarah dreamed of the same picnic. The man in black waved at her. When she woke up, the photo was gone, and she couldn't remember who her grandmother was.